Water. It's always been at the epicenter of human progress. But what happens when this vital resource becomes a point of contention between nations, when the very rivers that nourished ancient empires turn into modern-day battlegrounds? From the great civilizations that once thrived on the banks of the world's majestic rivers to the sprawling metropolises of today, we're diving deep into the geopolitics of water, exploring just how rivers have not just nurtured but also divided nations. We'll be focusing on just some examples like the Mighty Nile, the mystic Jordan, the vast stretches of the Indus, to the meandering Mekong and the Curvy Colorado. We'll unravel the stories of rivers that have seen empires rise and fall and continue to be at the heart of global disputes. Before we jump into the intricacies of modern water disputes, let's take a step back in time and unravel the profound relationship between water and human civilization. Water, in its many forms, has been revered and celebrated since the dawn of humanity. Rivers were not seen merely as life-giving resources, but also as deities and protectors in many cultures. The Nile was worshipped by the Egyptians, the Indus was central to the Indus Valley civilization, and the Tigris and Euphrates were the lifeblood of the Mesopotamian region. These majestic rivers provided more than just spiritual solace. Their banks were fertile, making them ideal for agriculture. Early humans settled around them, taking advantage of the rich soils, abundant fish, and fresh water. These settlements evolved over centuries into some of the world's most iconic past and present civilizations. The rivers thus became the cradle of culture, economy, and innovation. Strategic positioning along riverbanks didn't just ensure sustenance, it ensured dominance. Control over these waterways meant control over trade, communication, and power. As such, rivers have often been the backdrop for significant historical events, from grand celebrations to fierce battles. But with reliance and reverence also came competition. As populations grew and civilizations expanded, the pressure on these waterways intensified. What was once an abundant shared resource slowly turned into a fiercely contested one. Ancient empires engaged in conflicts over control of river valleys and water resources. Battles were fought to secure access to fertile lands and the life-giving waters flowing through them. And while these rivers have witnessed the ebb and flow of time, their significance has only grown. Today, they're not just historical landmarks, but geopolitical flashpoints. As we move forward, we'll see how these ancient relationships with rivers set the stage for the geopolitical dramas of today. The Nile. Spanning over 6,600 kilometers or 4,100 miles for all the viewers in the US and Myanmar, it's not only Africa's longest river, but also one of the world's most iconic. Its waters have been a lifeline for civilizations for millennia, offering sustenance, connectivity, and prosperity. For Egypt, the Nile has been more than just a source of water, it's been a source of life itself. The annual flooding of the Nile brought nutrient-rich sediments that rejuvenated the soil, providing the foundation for agriculture and allowing ancient Egypt to thrive. The Nile's significance in Egypt's history and culture is immense, as it shaped the rhythm of life along its banks. Temples, pyramids, and cities all emerged thanks to the river's blessings. But the Nile is not just Egypt's, it's a shared legacy, coursing through 11 countries. Its two primary tributaries, the Blue Nile and the White Nile, converge in Sudan right in its capital Khartoum, weaving a story of shared heritage but also shared challenges. In recent years, the very waters that have been a source of unity have sown seeds of discord. Central to this tension is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or the GERD. Ethiopia's ambitious dam project on the Blue Nile has sparked tensions between downstream Egypt and Sudan. Initiated in 2011 and officially opened in 2020, the GERD is a source of immense national pride for Ethiopia. Intended to be Africa's largest hydroelectric project, it promises to address significant power shortages in the country and offer potential for economic uplift. However, downstream in Egypt and Sudan, the mood is different. For Egypt, the Nile is more than just a river, it's its primary source of water, making them particularly vulnerable to any upstream changes. Egypt fears that the GERD's filling and operation could drastically reduce the Nile's flow, affecting its agriculture, drinking water supply, and overall water security. Sudan, sandwiched between the two, has its concerns as well. While they stand to benefit from the dam's regulated flow, especially during flood seasons, they also worry about their own water security and potential dam safety issues. The Nile River dispute underscores a larger dilemma. How do nations balance developmental aspirations with shared ecological responsibilities? Should Ethiopia have free rein to build as many dams as it wants in its own portions of the Nile, or should Sudan and Egypt have a say in what a sovereign nation does within its own borders? It's a question not just for the Nile Basin countries, but for every shared waterway in the world. Diplomatic efforts, however, have been underway for years now to try and find a mutually beneficial solution, highlighting the importance of cooperation in managing shared water resources. However, talks between the three nations stagnated throughout 2022. In early 2023, Egypt and Sudan began conducting joint military drills, indicating to some that despite official reports, negotiations had broken down. Some observers speculate that as the GERD project nears completion, Ethiopia's negotiating leverage increases relative to that of Sudan and Egypt, further inciting global concern over a future conflict between the nations in the Nile region. From the majestic Nile, we now journey to the heart of the Middle East, to the waters of the Jordan River. Shorter than the Nile, like way shorter, 251 kilometers or 156 miles long, but equally significant, the Jordan River is a geographical and historical landmark, and holds a significance that reaches far beyond its waters. Flowing through Israel, Palestine, Jordan, and parts of Syria and Lebanon, the Jordan River has long been a source of spiritual connection and contention. For many, these waters are sacred. The Jordan is deeply woven into the religious tapestry of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. It's believed to be the river where Jesus was baptized, and its significance reverberates through countless biblical tales. However, beyond its religious resonance, the Jordan River is central to a more contemporary and contentious narrative. For decades, its basin has been a hotbed of disputes. Water scarcity, compounded by regional conflicts, has turned this once bountiful river into a contested resource. As populations grew and demands intensified, the flow of the Jordan diminished, with its waters receding and some stretches even drying up. The Dead Sea into which Jordan drains stands as a landmark to this decline. Once famous for its buoyant waters, the Dead Sea is shrinking, its shores receding, a victim of both natural processes and human extraction. For nations along the Jordan, the river is both a practical and symbolic resource. Israel and Jordan in particular have grappled over its waters. Conflict about the waters of the Jordan River was a contributing factor to the Six-Day War. In 1965, Syria, which had until recently been a part of the United Arab Republic along with Egypt, attempted to divert some of its headwaters in a collaboration with Lebanon and Jordan. Of course, this wasn't the only cause for the war, which ended with an Israeli victory. Yet amidst the disputes, there's also been attempts at collaboration. The 1994 peace treaty between Israel and Jordan highlighted water sharing as a crucial component, emphasizing mutual dependency and the need for cooperation. For the people living along the Jordan, the river is a lifeline. From farming to tourism, its waters sustain countless livelihoods. But it's not just about economics, it's about identity, heritage, and a deep-rooted connection to the land. The northern part of the Jordan River, which borders Syria, has seen some tensions though. The Syrian civil war, which began in 2011, had spillover effects in the Golan Heights region, adjacent to the Jordan River. However, these tensions were more related to the civil war than direct disputes over the river itself. While the 1994 treaty marked a significant step towards peace and cooperation, the region's complex geopolitical landscape means that the Jordan River and its surroundings remain sensitive. However, direct conflicts specifically centered on the river have been limited since the treaty's signing. Shifting from the Middle East, we're tracing the flow of one of Asia's greatest rivers, the Indus. Originating in the Tibetan Plateau and journeying through China, India, and Pakistan, the Indus is a lifeline for millions and a symbol of both collaboration and contention. For centuries, civilizations have thrived along the banks of the Indus and its tributaries. Starting with the Indus Valley Civilization, which was a Bronze Age civilization lasting from 3300 BC to 1300 BC, and together with ancient Egypt, which was of course based around the Nile, and Mesopotamia, based around the Tigris and Euphrates river system, it was one of the three early civilizations of the Near East and South Asia, and of the three, the most widespread. However, in the post-colonial era, this very river has become a flashpoint between two nuclear-armed neighbors, India and Pakistan. The story of the Indus River is intricately linked with the actual partition of India in 1947. As British India was divided into India and Pakistan, the question of sharing the Indus's waters became a matter of urgency and contention. Amid the political upheaval and communal tensions, both India and Pakistan recognized the importance of water resources. The Indus Water Treaty, brokered with the assistance of the World Bank, was signed. This exceptional diplomatic achievement allocated the waters of the eastern rivers, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, to India, and the western rivers, which once again I'm not going to try and pronounce, except for the Indus, to Pakistan. Yet while the treaty has held firm, so have various challenges. Climate change, glacial melt in the Himalayas, increasing water demand, and the infrastructural projects have often ignited concerns on both sides. The changing climate and growing populations have strained the resources, leading to concerns about water scarcity and the treaty's adaptability. Due to massive infrastructure and irrigation projects, the flow of the river has been reduced so much that according to certain experts, the flood in 2010 could be considered good news, and that's in quotation marks, for the ecosystem and population of the river delta, as they brought much needed fresh water. However, with more than 2,000 people dead and more than 1 million homes destroyed due to those specific floods, it's kind of hard to imagine. Tensions between Islamabad, New Delhi, and Beijing, specifically regarding the Indus, have been pretty non-existent, although, with three nations, all of which have nuclear weapons and border disputes, it's sure to be a major point of contention should a future conflict arise. The Mekong River, often referred to as the Mother of Water, stretching over 4,900 kilometers or 3,000 miles, flows through multiple countries, including China, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Its waters have sustained communities and cultures for centuries. The Mekong is more than a river, it's a lifeline. It supports the livelihoods of millions, providing food, water, and transportation. The river's basin is one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth, and its waters have fostered cultures that have thrived for generations. However, the story of the Mekong is not without its challenges. The river's upper reaches, particularly in China and Laos, have seen a surge in hydropower projects. As of at least 2016, the Mekong has the fastest growing hydropower construction of any large river basin worldwide, with just China building 11 cascade dams between 1995 and 2019. While these dams promise electricity and development, they've also raised alarms downstream. Countries like Cambodia and Vietnam, situated at the Mekong's lower stretches, have been bearing the brunt, primarily experiencing negative ecological and social problems. Altered river flows impact fish migration, affect agriculture, and even threaten the very existence of the UNESCO-listed Tonle Sap Lake in Cambodia. While no conflicts have risen recently specifically due to the Mekong River, it's obvious that the nations located downstream have more than a few words to say about the development that the nations upstream have been doing. The long-term consequences are yet to be seen. The changing Mekong also holds a geopolitical subtext. As nations along its course jostle for control and influence, the river becomes a reflection of a larger power dynamic in the region. Organizations like the Mekong River Commission have been striving for a collective approach, but the challenges are multifaceted, bridging the gap between national aspirations, regional considerations, and the shared responsibility towards a river that sustains so many. The Mekong River story underscores the importance of considering the interplay between water resources, economic development, and environmental preservation. It's a reminder that water connects not only nations, but also ecosystems and communities. Stretching over 2,300 kilometers or 1,400 miles, the Colorado nourishes vast landscapes, catering to both the ecological richness of the region and the livelihoods of millions. Yet, its tale is also one of over-allocation, dwindling supplies, and binational intricacies. Native Americans have inhabited the Colorado River Basin for at least 8,000 years. Starting around 1 AD, large agriculture-based societies were established, but a combination of drought and poor land use practices led to their collapse in the 1300s. The Colorado River Basin has played a pivotal role in supporting the growth of cities like Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Phoenix. Its waters have been harnessed for irrigation, hydropower, and recreational activities, fueling economic prosperity. The river was most extensively harnessed throughout the 20th century. Infrastructure projects, most importantly the largest dam in the US, the Hoover Dam, and the Imperial Valley fiasco that the California Development Company created in the 1900s, which honestly requires a whole video on its own, so let me know if you're interested in that, were driven by the quest for water security and power generation. These projects have redefined the river's flow. Urbanization, agriculture, and a growing population in the American Southwest have placed immense demands on the Colorado. By the time it reaches its natural delta in Mexico, what was once a roaring river often becomes a mere trickle, a shadow of its former glory. The 1944 treaty relating to the utilization of waters of the Colorado and Tijuana rivers and of the Rio Grande governs the distribution of the river's waters between the two countries. I'm talking about the US and Mexico, of course. The treaty underscores the importance of shared resources and cooperation in ensuring water availability. Collaborative efforts such as Minute 319 and Minute 323, agreements supplementary to the original treaty, reflect a recognition that the river's health is intertwined with the well-being of both nations. These agreements have focused on sharing the burdens and benefits of water shortages and surpluses and have laid the groundwork for habitat restoration in the river's delta. While this is probably the most tame example in geopolitical terms out of every river that we've covered today, due to the excellent relationship between the US and Mexico, it has its own fair share of conflicts. In the 60s and 70s, the US faced disputes with Mexico over the salinity levels of the Colorado River water reaching the Mexican border. Increased salinity harmed Mexican agriculture. California historically has used more than its allocated share for the Colorado River, drawing upon unused allocations from other states. When those states, like Arizona and Nevada, increased their own water usage, tensions arose. Of course, these conflicts have long since been resolved. Even without as many tense situations as the other rivers we talked about, the challenges of water scarcity and competing demands persist. Finding a balance between meeting the needs of growing populations, agriculture, and environmental conservation remains a complex task. From the heart of North America to the vast stretches of Asia, this journey across global river stories highlights one inescapable truth. Where there's water, there often arise conflicts. As essential as it is to life, water has also been a source of tension, contention, and even conflict. So what stirs the waters? What underlying factors lead to disputes over the most vital of resources? Well, both natural and human-made factors are at play. Firstly, we have scarce resources with growing demand. At its core, water disputes arise from the fundamental equation of supply and demand. With escalating population growth, urbanization, and agricultural needs, the demand for water has skyrocketed. In many parts of the world, this demand outstrips nature's ability to replenish. Water doesn't always flow in isolation either. Its course is often intertwined with historical grievances, territorial claims, and political ambitions. What may seem like a dispute over water can have undercurrents rooted in deeper geopolitical narratives. Many of the world's major rivers meander through multiple countries. Every nation along its course has its interest, be it agriculture, power generation, or urban supply. With each nation pulling in its direction, tensions are almost inevitable. The environment also plays a pivotal role in maintaining a river's health. Deforestation, pollution, or unchecked industrial growth can degrade water quality and quantity, sparking disputes over the diminished and tainted resource. Nature doesn't distribute its bounty evenly. Some regions are blessed with perennial rivers and abundant rainfall, while others languish in aridness. This geopolitical inequity, paired with human-made infrastructure projects like dams, can intensify disparities in water access. Addressing these factors requires comprehensive approaches that consider both local and global perspectives. Conservation, efficient water management, and sustainable agricultural practices play vital roles in mitigating water-related challenges. As we've seen today, the challenges surrounding shared water resources are complex and multifaceted. These challenges demand not only technical solutions, but also effective communication, negotiation, and collaboration. Water disputes left unchecked can escalate into larger regional or national conflicts. Diplomacy serves as a proactive measure, ensuring that tensions are addressed at the negotiation table rather than on the battlegrounds. Through diplomatic negotiations, nations can arrive at agreements that ensure equitable water sharing. Such agreements take into account the needs, rights, and concerns of all involved, striving for a balance that serves mutual interest. Whether these agreements are currently being respected or whether they'll continue to be respected in the future, well, that's a whole other topic. Diplomatic forums also serve as platforms for countries to share best practices, technologies, and strategies for sustainable water management. Through collective wisdom, nations can adapt practices that preserve and rejuvenate water resources. Diplomacy often extends beyond bilateral talks as well. Regional cooperatives bring together multiple nations, fostering dialogue that not only addresses shared water concerns, but also strengthens overall regional ties and collaborations. Diplomatic dialogues on water often open doors for broader collaborations as well. Shared hydropower projects, joint research initiatives, and cultural exchanges are just some examples of how water diplomacy can blossom into multifaceted partnerships. The involvement of international bodies and conventions like the United Nations and the World Bank often play a crucial role in facilitating negotiations and mediating disputes. Although when it comes to realpolitik or a matter of life and death, it becomes apparent that they're just that, places to sit and talk. From ancient civilizations rooted on riverbanks to contemporary geopolitical dialogues, water has always been central to the narrative, and as we stand on the cusp of the future, what awaits in the realm of water geopolitics? With growing global population for at least the next 70-something years based on most experts and changing climate, water is emerging as one of the most critical resources of the 21st and 22nd centuries. Ensuring access to clean water for drinking, sanitation, agriculture, and industry will be essential for human well-being and economic development. Technology holds promise though. Innovations in desalination, wastewater recycling, and precision agriculture could redefine how we source and utilize water. As nations invest in these technologies, collaborations and technology transfers could become essential to water diplomacy. As water resources become scarcer, nations can find themselves competing for limited water supplies, which could exacerbate existing geopolitical tensions. International agreements, dialogue, and cooperation will be instrumental in managing shared water resources and ensuring that disputes are resolved peacefully. Climate change, though, remains the wild card. With erratic rainfall, melting glaciers, and rising sea levels, the geopolitical landscape is set for a reshuffle. Nations will need to anticipate these changes and collaborate to mitigate impacts. The future might see a shift from fragmented policies to holistic ones. Integrated water resource management, considering ecological, societal, and economic dimensions, could become the gold standard, even though with how things have been seeming lately, this seems more like a fantasy than a potential reality. As we peer into the future, one thing is certain. The geopolitics of water will be rich and multifaceted, and even though the challenges are undeniable and pretty much unavoidable, so are the opportunities. And that's about it for the geopolitics of water. I know it was a different video to what we did last time. The last one was more history based, this one was more geography and geopolitic related, but like I said in the last video as well, I do want to make these types of videos even though they may be slightly different to each other. But yeah, definitely let me know your opinion on this topic in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like. It lets me know that you liked it, and if you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future video. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.